Shanti and welcome soul to soul, and we're going to talk about from blame to optimism, and this is Rose from Glasgow Inner Space. It's a really interesting thing to look at, because if we don't understand this habit, it's a big habit in human beings. It's not that we're bad, it's that it's a habit that is there without us even prompting or thinking about it. It just happens as easily as breathing. Because the least thing we feel, we turn around to blame someone else. And I have shared stories about this before, how I bumped my head and someone who was far away from me, I turned around and blamed them. What could they be blamed for me bumping my head? And even at the time I saw it as ridiculous. But because it was sore, you feel like you're irritated and you want to blame whoever's next to you. So it's very tricky. It must be very tricky right now when people are put together a lot more and they have this habit of blame. They will blame each other for everything, everything that goes wrong. And so we need to look at this. So when we feel conflict or blame, we experience fear. And therefore we try to avoid feeling that we're to blame for that. We don't want to think it's our fault. And this applies over and over and over in so many different situations. And so I have to look at my attitude, because if I have this attitude of blame, I have to look at my thoughts actually. So if you sometimes, you have to have a look now to get a hold of this, feel you have an attitude of challenge or blame or criticism. And if so, you close the doors to possibilities of making things okay for yourself and for others, because you close the door to the truth. And the truth is possibly that maybe I could have done something and didn't do anything. But we do have real power in any situation that's actually happening. And if there is awareness that a negative attitude will have a painful outcome, then you can choose a new way if I realise that this is not true, this isn't right. So if I refuse to take responsibility for my own attitude and thoughts, I will cause a lot of disturbance for myself and in relationship with others. If I remain blaming and critical, judging and disrespectful, I will remain emotionally blocked, because I won't ever know the truth. I won't learn anything. I've closed the door. I refuse to take responsibility that I might have said something, I might have been able to do something. It was nothing to do with that other person, but I am absolutely determined not to look. This is what this blaming attitude is like. So I do my best now not to make the situation worse by blaming someone else and remaining heavy. By casting blame, things get even worse. And quite a funny story, and you've probably heard it, but when we worked in the prison with boys, they used to say it was the culture of blame. The officers used to say this is a culture of blame. And so they said there's nobody here that's done anything, they're all innocent. And this was a long time ago, and actually we just really kind of believed these boys to be quite innocent. They used to look as innocent as they were, just young boys, some of them. We used to think, what are they doing in prison? Oh my goodness, I would like to think I could take them out here. But in actual fact, they weren't in there for no reason, but they were refusing to take the blame. They'd say I wasn't there, you know, I just happened to be passing by. And the police drove up and rounded us all up, and I was amongst them, and here I am, but I actually didn't do anything. So it's quite comical if you look at it that way. So we're all different and we're all unique. And there's a wonder to see within each individual person, each soul. And if I'm in a heavy mode and I'm not able to see the wonder, if I'm thinking, oh, they were this and they were that. But if I have a general attitude of optimism, it's a very fast way to raise my energy. And if I can keep my energy uplifted, then a whole new perspective on the situation opens up. Like just keep still, just don't say a word here. Maybe you are a bit to blame here, or maybe it was a two-way thing. Maybe it's stop having this blaming situation, because then you hold the resentment and then you hold the image of that person as being the one who did wrong and got in for you and always doing wrong, and maybe they haven't done a thing, not a thing. But it's your attitude that's creating all of this chaos, actually. And I'm sure if we're all honest in our heart and we look inside, we'll see that we've done this a few times, maybe more than a few times. I know as I'm speaking, I can see so many situations where I've been doing this over the years. I do my best not to do it now, but I have definitely been doing this. And I know someone who thinks that that's what I was doing when I wasn't doing anything. And that's when I started to think about it. I thought, gosh, I hadn't a thought in my head to be doing anything like that, and the next thing I'm getting the blame. So we have to think the damage we're doing to ourselves and the damage to others. So when I really just take heart and decide to have a look through different situations, I'll feel, oh my goodness. So when I change my attitude, everything changes. It's not reliant on others changing, because they might never change. They might never see that it wasn't me, it was them. So the third eye is the awareness of the soul. A spiritual perspective comes from using your third eye, thinking carefully, practicing I am a being of energy. This brings helpful attitudes, and I no longer need to study. I no longer need to struggle to actually stop the negativity. I need to study, actually, that's quite a good one. I can feel a dance in my mind instead with a relief. I feel the lightness and happiness, like, gosh, I don't want to go there anymore, getting this wrong and creating this chaos. It's me that's doing it. We're not doing it in a bad way. We didn't think to be bad. So this brings helpful attitudes, and I no longer struggle. So automatically I feel light-hearted and more friendly. Just have a look and see how you get caught up on trying to prove how bad someone else is. It's not you. It's not me, it was them. What do you mean it was that? Yeah, they never like this, and then they did that before, and they did something else like that, and oh, and the poor soul. Maybe they did a bit of something, but actually this harshness in us comes to the surface. So if I keep going with that process of seeing that the others are blaming others, it will pull me down. So learning to use thought energy will bring out the best in the self. So we can keep thinking like that. We're all different, and we're all special, and we're all valuable. Seeing myself more clearly means I stop having such negative visions of others. I can teach myself anyway to be like that. I can value myself more, and I can value others more.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense, but I also recognise the heavy energy you talked about, and how once that's begun, either just when you're on your own or in connection with someone, very difficult to shift. Do you have any short-term or long-term solutions to, talking about dancing in the mind and uplifting energy? It all makes such perfect sense, but I also know the heaviness of that unpleasant negative energy and how it can become very sticky. It's hard to move out.
It's something I have to practice really before it happens, if you know what I mean. I need to be thinking about it from now, going home and thinking about this, and then if a little thing happens and I find I'm ready to cast the blame, nothing has happened as yet, but I catch myself then. And then if something does happen and I'm away to blame someone, and they really are to blame, because they could be to blame, I have to show that I value them. First, I have to speak really nicely to someone and show that I value them and find a very tactful way, maybe not even go into it, but just not go down the blame situation. Don't blame them, even if they've done something that you don't like. But if it's to do with myself, I have to teach myself to catch myself before I start to feel the hurt or whatever, and I have to value myself. I have to say, look, you're doing your best, you're very sincere, you're very good-hearted, you're not bad. The minute you see the truth, you're not going to go hurting someone else. So go down that track of knowing who you really are. You're not in the least bit interested in causing a chaos or hurting someone, and then maybe they've hurt you, but you're not going to blame them for having hurt you. You realise that this thing of blame has taken you quite some time to get a handle on. So you can't go blaming them for blaming you either. It's quite something, you know.
So you're going to set up like a dialogue. You set up a space where the fear of blame or punishment is removed. And there's a chance to actually really communicate.
And maybe even have a smile, even if you never know, you might have a smile. Yeah.
That's lovely, because people are terrified of being blamed, even if they know they did something.
Yeah.
And then that makes it worse. And you also said about practicing in advance, and it made me think about how we can be trying to prove how bad other people are, even when there's nobody else there, but it's almost we're trained, because everything in the media is all about how bad people are. It's very seldom about how valuable or wonderful people are. So to shift that and watch for that habit.
I know. Well, we often do that to make ourselves look better in some way, as we know that one. And we know these rules, but we have to practice so that we've got them ready when things happen. Because it's almost like a huge relief for us to cast the blame on others. It's like, I'm off the hook. But what I'm doing is I'm not facing the truth. That they didn't, or if they did, it's because they don't know how to stop it, or they don't even understand it, and it would cause chaos if you were to actually go into it. you would have to try and create some form of a let it go, and maybe just take some ideas from the situation and not feel that you're desperate to prove how right you are, but think, well, leave it be just now, let it cool, maybe at another time if something similar comes along, or just before something comes along, let me look for openings to say, you know, I'm not to blame, or you're not, or you are to blame, or you're not to blame, or whatever.
It's really interesting because we want to be good, we want to feel that we are good.
That's it.
In order to feel good, I kind of paint this false good, to the ego you might call it, and then that actually gets in the way of me exploring a deeper, actually really being, a kind of what you might call a purer soul, or a fresher, brighter energy, because I'm so much trying to show the world that I'm good.
And it takes away my happiness and my feeling of respect for myself, and that great feeling of relief that I've done the right thing and that I am good. I can't feel that if I'm always blaming. See what I'm saying? It's quite something. But it's a two-way switch. I have to understand the blamer as well. They can't help it. You can't help it. Because giving us a second, we'll be blaming someone. Let us let go of understanding, and we're away down that track again. It is to try and be good.
So the key of soul consciousness that we use for everything, how does that fit into this? I mean, how does that just make it all come alive and make it possible when I know something about who I really am?
I think that if someone starts to believe that I actually trust them, trust is a big word, and if I start to keep thinking of trusting for myself, I've got to trust myself. And when I know that I trust myself and I'm doing something that's not such a good thing, I have to keep on that track and remain cheerful, optimistic and light-hearted. Like, it's okay, everything's fine, it's not such a big deal kind of attitude, you know. And then this will help me to, no matter how much someone gets disturbed by what's happening, if there's a chaotic thing happening, this will save my inner power and actually save someone else's inner power. Forceful, angry energy is weak, and there isn't any strength in it. Higher energy is full of power, peace, kindness, and patience. So if I start to look at these higher energies, stillness, silence, understanding, here we need understanding. I need to put a full stop to wanting to jump in there and express, you know, and understand if someone else is jumping in there to really have a go at me, and I know that it's, or I don't know what they're talking about, but maybe there is something there. I also have to look and see if there is, and start to have that honesty. So when I practice meditation, my power comes back. Stillness inside brings back my inner power. And when I have my inner power, I have the strength to kind of stop, listen and see what's happening and try something that's a bit better. That's about it, really.
Do you think that soul awareness can help build that trust you spoke about? Like, even if the other person doesn't trust me, I have a kind of faith, and there's something in there that's positive.
If you see, the law of energy is what you put out, you get in. So if I'm trusting someone, even if they're treating me very poorly, my energy of trust will be having an effect. And if it's a one-off, I might never see the result of that. But if it's someone I'm, in communication with a bit, there's a chance that they will begin to think, well, maybe she's not as bad as I thought she was. And they may start to trust you a bit and see that you're not in there to get one over on them or find fault. So that's where spirituality comes in, that not to feel you're really better than anyone else, but to feel that you're all energy.
So what kind of things do you say to yourself to help you understand your part in something? Because there's a question coming about that. It's easy to see the other people's part, but it's not always easy to see the self in a mix and see my part, my imperfections.
What I do is I look at silence, stillness, and I look at tolerance. I think tolerance is an incredible energy. I encourage myself to be tolerant about myself. And understanding comes from tolerance. And the energy I was thinking about recently quite a lot was to be okay about everyone, to accommodate whatever anyone's like. And it takes you to think about this in advance. You can't just go in there and start saying I'm tolerant and, I can accommodate whatever they're like, and they can be really terrible to me and I'm going to smile. It's like I have to think about it in advance, and then I have to realise that there's some benefit in this for me. You have got to be real here. The benefit is I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to feel the achievement of having done it, having been tolerant, having accommodated, having respected, having had a good vision for another being. And once I do that, I can do it again. And it'll get stronger. And my feeling of trust for humans, whatever they're like, will grow and develop.
That sounds really hopeful.
That is very hopeful.
We could do with a good injection of hope, I think. And optimistic.
Yeah, it's very optimistic. But it's very real, and it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just fall into your hands. You do have to practice the stillness and the silence and the good feelings for others, knowing that they're but for fortune. That's where I was. And this is where they talk about experience. When you experience something, it's a very, very powerful energy. Well, we all definitely experienced that we had all these traits which weren't too healthy for us. And when I know that, how can I get annoyed at other people having these same traits that I had? Well, maybe I still got a trace even, but I do my best not to have them now, because I know they're not going anywhere. I know they're hurtful. And I know there's no truth. It's not true, actually, for any of us. And there's no outcome. There's no, closure. Because it's just false. You say, I blame you, you're horrible, you were terrible, look how you treat me, this is dreadful. Oh, can't stand it any longer, I'm going to run away. Where does that get you? Just meet someone else and go through the same stuff again. And then you run away from them and you have to run away again and again. I have to turn round at some point and say, no, I'm going to stop and I'm going to look at myself. And maybe it is me, because the same things are happening to me over and over. and it's not pleasant, so it has to stop now. Now, when I know I'm a soul, I can begin that journey. Okay?
Lovely. Well, I think we could talk all night, but we better stop now and have a moment of silence.
A minute of silence. Okay. So looking at the centre of the forehead, just bring it into our awareness. I'm a being of light. In the centre of my forehead, a thinking, feeling, loving, peaceful energy, capable of all understanding. I have to test my capabilities and encourage myself to be real, truthful, powerful, real, soul conscious energy in the center of my forehead. I am a soul. In interaction, I'm interacting with another soul, very similar to myself, a being of light, a loving being.